Hey everybody, we are here with my friend Mukul. He's a returning guest to the channel. Today I'm going to be asking him some questions about strategies that new designers should take when they're looking for a job. So Mukul, thank you for coming back. Do you have anything that you want to add to your intro here?
Thanks for the invite, Kyle. Always great to be here and coach or add some comments that junior designers can learn from. Um, and I'm very excited to record this podcast. Also, I wanted to mention that everything that I will talk about today are my own personal views and do not reflect the views of the company that I work at or anybody else.
Yeah, anyone who's watching is going to learn a lot because Mukul is one of the best designers, or probably the best designer that I know. So very happy to have him here.
You're very kind.
So I'll get right into the questions that I had for you. So, first one I had is let's imagine that you're a new designer with no real world work experience. You've learned some UX fundamentals, made a portfolio, and now you're trying to get a job. Every time you apply, you can't get an interview. What do you do to solve this problem and get a job?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I keep hearing a version of that question from junior designers. I think there's a few parts to that question or your response to that. One is um, people have to come to terms with the reality that applying online has very low odds of getting you a job. Um, every job has hundreds of applicants as UX design has become more and more popular, and there's just no way a recruiter or a hiring manager is going to be able to go through those resumes or portfolios. So I would say one, like get out of thinking that applying online is your only source of getting a job. Other venues are going to industry events that could include a hackathon. It could include a meetup in your town or city where you live. Um, if if those are not available, I would recommend signing up for design mentorship websites like ADP List and talking to a bunch of senior designers and learning from them. So those are some of the ways I would say, like, how can you grow your network? Not necessarily just networking in the old ways, which is introduce yourself and try to get their LinkedIn. That stuff never worked. It probably won't work ever. But connecting to people as human beings, figuring out what they want, what they're working on, and if you're also interested in working on that same thing, then figuring out if there's a way you can do that to do that with them. Also, another part of the question is that you're a new designer and you've learned UX fundamentals. As UX design industry matures, just learning the UX fundamentals is not enough. You have to be good at visual design, you have to be good at product thinking, market strategy, how to introduce a product to market, brand strategy. You don't have to be great at those, but at least know the terms being used to communicate those things in a professional setting. Um, and as you grow that knowledge, whoever you talk to next is going to be able to get that you are not just a designer, you're a problem solver for the business and the customer, business's customer. And some resources to learn those would be like podcasts. So I listen to some product management podcasts, even though I'm not a product manager. Um, I listen to them because they talk about business and how to make products, which I believe helps us do our jobs better. I listen to some technical podcasts. I listen to market news podcasts. How is the economy doing? So those are some places I would recommend to take a look at.
Those are some really good insights there. I also had a follow up question for you because So you mentioned that the product thinking is very important, and I completely agree. Now, with a skill like UI and visual design, you can demonstrate that in a portfolio pretty easily. You pretty much look at it and know that that person has those skills.
Yeah.
With product thinking, I think it's a little bit more difficult because you can write a case study where you're showing that knowledge, but a dilemma there is a lot of people aren't going to read your whole case study. Do you have some ideas for how someone can show that they have those skills while they're out looking for a job?
Yeah, totally. I think that's a great question. So visuals and UI design, as you mentioned, is pretty easy to understand that this person is good at it. Um, and just to add more context to my previous answer, you could get a job just by having very solid visual design skills. But you might not get a UX job. You might get like a UI designer job or a graphic designer job, print, marketing. Like there's a ton of jobs in those industries or that functionality that exists. Um, I'm talking specifically about UX design jobs, which is a combination of problem solving, product thinking, prototyping, and visual design. Um, to answer your question about how do you show that, there's a couple things that you could do. One is, as you mentioned, Kyle, like people don't really read your case study, but people do like seeing videos and images. And I've given this advice more times than I can count. Your case study should have minimal amounts of text. You should have images and mock-ups and videos of prototypes in your case studies. And the old way of showing your process is kind of on its last legs, showing the design process of, hey, this I identified the problem, I did some research, then I made some wireframes, low fidelity prototypes. I think that like people now understand that you already have those skills, but what they're looking for is can you do problem solving, which is in your case study, just have a pretty good hero image or video, and then mention three main challenges, product challenges or business challenges or user challenges that you were solving. And with that, just show the problem, one image of the problem, if there is an image, if you're working on an existing product, and then what was your solution. If you show me your ideal solution and then after talking to the developers, you realize that ideal solution is going to take 6 months to implement, and then you scaled back the design so that it could be implemented in a month. I would love to see that too. And you like those could be just three screens, like original, ideal, implemented. And that tells me a lot about your product thinking. You don't have to spend like reams and reams of text describing what you did, because as you said, people don't read or they don't have the time to read. In terms of like the length of the case studies, I'm fine if I see like 6 to 7 images. You don't have to have 10 scrolls, either on a mobile device or even on your desktop. Like just give me 2 to 3 scrolls. Show me the breadth of the work that you've done. If you can share not just the screens, but you can share a prototype, that's going to be very compelling. If you can go even further and show an icon that you designed, let's say you designed the app's icon, show it to me in context, like maybe on a billboard or on a book that you can put on it. It's just like shows that you went the extra mile to make your images look good, and that's also how you show your visual design prowess.
That's a really good idea. So does that mean you think maybe an ideal case study should only show your product and problem solving ability plus visual and UI design? You're not really talking about anything else like the context of the project, your like low fidelity wireframing, things like that?
I think the context and the framing is important, but the low fidelity wireframes or that classic image of 10 sticky notes on a wall, all of those are out the window. If you want to show that you did do research, let's say like you say, hey McCool, I did all this research, I want to share that. One of the best ways to share research is just show me one quote from your customer that relates to that particular problem that you're solving, right? So you have, let's say you want to show 3 problems that you're solving in the case study. Just show me one quote that specifically gets to that. And then I don't have to see all the other data points. Even though you might have interviewed 20 people, you could just show me one quote that's related to that. And I'm just going to assume that you did the work of extracting that insight from those like 20 data points. If you really have like very good looking low fidelity prototypes, it could be just at the very bottom, you could show a carousel of your process, like 10 images inside a carousel that people can skip through if they want to. But main thing should be about your like big context and then couple images showing your problem solving skills. And well, you're a new designer, so you might not necessarily have the impact, but if you have the impact, that will be great as well, which is ship this design and this signups increased or retention increased or revenue increased. That might even be at the very top in the context where, hey, the reason you should read this case study is because it had an impact of XYZ.
Amazing. Those are such an incredibly valuable insights, because I think so many people are still just stuck on doing the like very long form case study that would take so long to read.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be surprised. Also, if you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. I recently met a junior product designer who did not have an account on Twitter. Their LinkedIn profile was bare bones, that if I even searched for a designer, like they would not pop up. So get on all the hiring platforms like LinkedIn. On Twitter, you would stay up to date with what's happening in the design world. People have difficulty where they don't know who to follow when they get on Twitter. I would say just go to like the top 10 people on Twitter in your field. Your field is probably UX design, but it could be specific. It could be like for AI or for fintech. Go to those people, see who they follow, and just follow everybody who they follow. And then your feed is going to be the top tier news that's happening in that industry.
That's great stuff. Well, I'll move on to the next question that I had for you. So I want to know, do you think UX designers should change their strategy for finding a job in 2024, given the layoffs that are happening and kind of the slump that we're going through in the job market right now?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think so. Couple things. I've been in my career for almost close to a decade, and the things that were expected of me in the beginning of my career are not the same. So UX design is constantly evolving as a career. It used to be called interaction designers in the very beginning. Before that, it was information architecture designers. Then it changed to web designers, then UX designers, and product designers. Now, we might be called something else by the end of this decade, right? So you constantly have to be learning new things and changing your strategy. So specifically towards layoffs, the market overall for software or for the tech jobs is pretty bad right now. I hope that it gets better at some point, either this year or next year. Once interest rates come down, that's going to lead to companies having more money to be able to hire people. But another thing that's coming as headwinds for UX design or for any tech job is the introduction of AI, all these large language models, not just text models, but vision models as well. So one of the things that I recently tried is I gave a screenshot of one of the big music apps to ChatGPT and asked it, as a senior product designer or as a lead product designer, what things would you improve in this screenshot? And it gave me 10 results, and out of those, 2 or 3 were like pretty impressive, pretty damn impressive. Even I hadn't thought of those, and the other ones were like pretty on point. Maybe like 3 or 4 didn't make sense, but the others did, right? So there's increasingly going to be AI tools that are going to be introduced in the workplace that are going to make your job easier or reduce the amount of work that you have to do. I would urge you to start using these tools already, so that when you're interviewing, or even if you're not interviewing, after you've joined a job, you're going to be way faster than somebody who's not using these AI tools, right? I don't want to get into or predict like that there's going to be no tech jobs in the future. I don't think anybody knows. If we look at history, anything that becomes cheaper has a higher demand. So as software gets cheaper to build due to AI, the demand for building software might go up, right? So I don't want to get into like predicting the future, but I believe that 5 years from now, a lot of the things that we do now are going to be done by using AI. So learn that. In terms of strategy, as I said, just don't rely on online application as your sole target, right? You could spend 20%, 30%, 40% time on this, but the rest, spend your time learning about all these other disciplines that you're going to collaborate with, going to hackathons. And that's how I would say like one of the ways to find jobs. Another one is, if you're not getting a job, like either apply for internships, and that's a good way to get experience, or look for freelance work. Freelance work on tons of platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, where you might not get right off the bat, but you're getting a lot of experience, and that experience is real world. You're going to have to work with somebody who's a developer. If it's a bigger company, there might be a product manager on there. So you're going to learn a lot of like professional skills on how to communicate, but also how do you design something that can be implemented in the given time. As designers, we all love to design cool stuff that looks good, works great, but in the practical real world life, it might not be able to be implemented in the time frame that you have. So that's where the problem solving aspect comes in, that you can't just learn from designing something that looks good.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. I also just wanted to go back to what you were saying about using some of these AI tools. I don't think many junior designers are doing that yet. And I think that was such a good idea. Like, I didn't even know ChatGPT could analyze a UI like that.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're a new designer and you're, I don't know, like redesigning something that you want to make a case study for, like, you can use some of those ideas from ChatGPT and, like, your either a concept project or like some of your first freelance projects and really be able to stand out.
That's a
So,
great point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. If you're looking to get feedback on your portfolio, ChatGPT is one of the resources. Just ask it. Like, not all suggestions might be great, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
wow. Yeah, I don't think many people know that ChatGPT is capable of that. So this might be like a pretty groundbreaking suggestion there.
Yeah, if you want to go to Twitter, I posted this on Twitter a couple months ago. So check it out. Or if you have access to ChatGPT, just use it yourself. I don't think you need a pro account to upload an image and get a response. So try it. You might want to experiment with prompts a little bit to get ChatGPT to give you a good enough response. But then that could be something that you write about in your social media posts or in your portfolio. Hey, I'm proficient with all of these AI tools.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing ideas. So I'll move on to the next question. And you might have touched on some of this already, but the question I had for you is, what do you think are some common things that are holding junior designers back from getting their first job? So do you think you covered that in some of your previous answers, or was there anything that you maybe wanted to add there?
I think I mostly like covered it, but I'll just summarize it in a couple sentences. One is try to get real world experience. Your portfolio case studies might not be enough to get you your first job. It may or may not be, depending on which city you live in and what the job market looks like in that city. And having a real world experience is always good for learning long term. And two, a UX designer's job is not just to move pixels around. Our job is to problem solve and have a strong reason for why those pixels exist. So start broadening your horizon. If you have already, that's great. But if you haven't, then start consuming news outside the design industry, like how do businesses operate. Go and read some Harvard business case studies. There are some free ones available out there. You don't always have to pay for them. Read some business books, read some product management books, and overall start to think of yourself as a problem solver who knows design rather than a designer who's letting other people solve the problems.
Also very well said. So the next question I had, I think you also touched on a little bit, but there might be some elaboration there that you could do. It was, what role do personal projects and freelance work play in helping designers overcome the experience gap and get their first job in the design field?
Yeah, I think I'm a big fan of freelance projects, and kind of just adding a little bit to the question, you might actually like your freelance job and be very successful at it. You don't have to get a full-time traditional job. I have a few friends who are freelance, and they can, because they're freelance, they can just live anywhere they want, right? So figure out what you want, but if you don't know what you want, the best way to figure it out is to try it. And that's why I would recommend just try getting a freelance job. And it doesn't have to be on Upwork and Fiverr. It could be a friend who's looking for a flyer for their DJ gig, right? You could literally show up to a shop in your town and tell them, hey, I'm going to build you a website for free. And sell it to them, which is it's going to increase your traffic. Or you could say, I'm gonna have your social media revamped. Like if somebody already has a channel in your town, like some local businesses, you can provide your visual design services for free to them. There's plenty of businesses that are looking for that. And as you start doing that, you might realize that just because something looks visually great doesn't mean it performs on the social media channels. And that's a good learning to have. And then how would you problem solve your way out of it? The answer might be, it doesn't mean we need good design. It means we need to run ads for a certain demographic. And then you're off to the races. Now you know a little bit about the ad industry and social media marketing. And that's going to look pretty good on your portfolio or your interviews, where you can tell people, hey, I designed this, I didn't really land. So then I went down the rabbit hole of social media marketing, and I was able to increase the sales of the shop by 100% on a certain capital investment. So I would say that one of the ideas that I have never seen it being done, but I always wish that junior designers would do. Not everyone can afford it, but email a startup founder and tell them, I will pay you $500 per month to let me design for your company.
Whoa.
Or $100 per month. I know there might be people all over the world. And the reason I say that is because startup founders don't have time. And just because you're offering to work for free for them, you're actually consuming their time a couple hours per week. So they might not be incentivized enough to give you that job. But if you're telling them, hey, I will pay you to let me do this job, in your mind, think about it, it's like a boot camp, right?
Yeah.
If you're buying an online course or a boot camp, you're paying money to learn, right?
Right.
Why can't you do that with a startup founder or somebody who's like low, not like a big company? I don't want to promote that you should give your services away for free as like a tenured designer, but the first 6 months or the first 4 or 5 months, if you're not getting anything, it might be a good idea to get the experience and then immediately get out of it. So don't do this for like a couple of years. Everybody's got to pay their bills. But if you're looking to get real world experience and you're not being able to get it through all the above said ways, might be something to try. You might get the job just because of the shock factor too.
Yeah, that is such a fantastic idea, and I've never heard anybody say that before.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a really good chance that you're just gonna stand out, and he's gonna be like, I'm not gonna take your money, but I think that's really cool that you want to do this job that bad, and so yeah, come work with us maybe for free, and then maybe shortly after that they arrange something where they can start paying you a little bit.
exactly. 99%, no startup founder is gonna let you pay them to let you do that job. The 1% at a time it does happen, oh well. Either don't take the job or just take the job if you still want it. But I can very confidently say most startup founders are just going to be impressed that you basically reverse engineered the whole process, which is I am going to pay you, not the other way around.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So I'm waiting for the day where somebody does this, and if one of you do this, send me an email afterwards and let me know how it went.
Yeah. Um, and I think the good thing about going after startups also is you can look for startups on, say, something like AngelList. And if you just go to their website, it'll be very clear if they have a designer working with them or not.
Yes.
Like, if they have a terrible website and a terrible app that's clearly not really designed, um, I'm sure that they'll be thrilled about taking you up on this opportunity.
They would be,
Because if it's
and
just like the founder doing the designs on their own, even if you're a junior designer and you don't have a really high skill level yet, it's still going to be way better than what the like founder, whoever, whatever non-designer is doing those designs is doing.
exactly, yeah. And one of the ways to do this, even like stand out a little bit more, is you spend a day designing their website, and in the email attach that as a screenshot, not the Figma file, but just a screenshot to show, hey, I just wanted to do this because I think you're working on something really cool. Let me know if you want a designer. And I know a day's worth of work might be like too much, but if you're fast, you can fix major issues in a website in like 2 hours. And it also builds up your muscle, which is you're not inventing new paradigms. You got to use their font, you got to use their colors, their brand. So you have all the assets. You're just going to make it more, you're going to make the information hierarchy feel better and the visual hierarchy look better. And just doing that can make a website like 10 times better in terms of visuals.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and even if they don't respond or something, you can still use that work for something.
Exactly.
Maybe you just like change the company name on it and use it as a piece on Dribble or something
Yeah,
like that. So even if you did that and
good
you got
idea.
nothing out of it, it wouldn't be just a waste of time.
Exactly.
And it's great practice anyway because junior designers should be practicing all the time.
Yes, yes. I was not, I'm giving this advice, but I didn't follow it in my early career. I was very, I thought that there was no way I was going to be good at visual design. And that held me back from practicing. And after a few years of doing this, I started practicing a lot. And I just like pattern recognition. The more I practiced, the more I understood that this looks good and the reason why it looks good. And now I have pretty good visual design chops. I'm not the best, but I have pretty good visual design chops. So don't be intimidated by it. You don't have to be an artist to be good at visual design. Just practice a lot. And there's a bunch of resources out there. Like there's the 100-day daily UI contest. If not even that, just like copy all the top 10 apps in the App Store. Copy their first two pages. You're gonna learn so much from copying that that is it's gonna like take your visual design game to the next level.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's something that I did quite a bit when I was first starting out. Um, yeah, and
Nice.
completely agree that like visual design is a very learnable skill. I had zero talent when it came to visual design starting out, did nothing artistic my entire life, and within a year got like pretty decent. And that was like visual and UI design skills are one of the main reasons why I got my last two jobs.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, great advice there again. Now we'll move on to the last question. Once again, this is something that you've talked about, but I wanted to know how effective is networking in at getting into the industry, and is this something that designers should be spending a significant amount of time on, or should they be spending more time doing things like refining their portfolio and like practicing?
Yeah, I think that's gonna be it's gonna be an answer that's the classic it depends. If your portfolio is already good in terms of it has good case studies with real world projects and impact, even if it is not real world projects, you share it with a few senior designers and they tell you that your portfolio is pretty good for a beginner job or a starting job. Um, I would say then you should definitely spend time networking a lot. And by networking, I mean going to meetups, going to hackathons, offering your services to local vendors, local shop owners. Um, I don't think as I said this before as well, networking is not just showing up at a conference and trying to get a bunch of LinkedIn profiles or their emails or their numbers, right? Networking is about you have gone deep into two or three fields. So another kind of tangential advice to this, which is a UX designer, as I said, is more and more being asked to problem solve. And you can't problem solve in like every industry. So you might at some point have to specialize into social or financial technology or AI, or certain kinds of industries that you're familiar with and you can effectively solve their problems, right? Um, no, this is not for anything anywhere outside of UX design. Like I think visual designers can potentially get a job anywhere, because what looks good in one industry also looks good in another industry most of the times. Brand and marketing designers can get jobs in a wide variety of industries. But UX designers, because you're also problem solving, you have to over time start developing the area that you're good at, to get to the next level. So when you're going to these networking events, already have a few areas that you're interested in. Meet with those people and show them that you have done your homework, which is what are the big problems in that industry, or that might be a great informational interview where you find somebody who's working in fintech or AI and you ask them, where do you see fintech and AI going like 3 years from now? Where is the industry now? How would it get there? And what are some major problems, right? If you show that you're curious about that industry and have some knowledge, then that's a very strong connection compared to you just introduce yourself to somebody and like ask for their LinkedIn after talking about generic design stuff, like Figma tools or Figma plugins. If you're able to dive a little bit deeper into like certain industries that you like, you don't have to commit to them, but just do some homework. And going back to AI tools, you don't have to search online. You can just go to ChatGPT and ask, what are the things I need to know about this industry? What are some great questions to ask somebody from this industry? And you're up to speed on something in like less than a day. So that's something I would recommend in terms of like how to do networking well.
It's another great idea because I don't think I've ever seen a junior designer who has any sort of like industry specific knowledge. So that is definitely a way to stand out massively right there.
Yeah. And also like just adding to that from what you were saying, Kyle, you could just ask ChatGPT, what are the top 10 problems in this industry? Or you could put in whatever app and ask it, how could this app be improved? It's going to give you 10 suggestions. Go and implement top 5 of those in that app, just like make a new Figma file. And 80% of the time, I think ChatGPT is a good way to do research. I would never say like use ChatGPT to do research when you can actually talk to your users. But for apps that have been around for 5-6 years, there's a lot of blogs been written about what's wrong with the app or what features people would like in that app. And all that data is compressed into LLMs. It could be ChatGPT, it could be Claude, or any your flavor of the month AI tool. There's a high chance those are real problems, and when you solve those problems, you can just show that as another portfolio case study.
Yeah, and I think also if you do that with enough apps and you're really trying to figure out like what problems are existing across, say, some of the common apps that people use in the App Store, you're also going to get a better idea of like what real problems are that are worth solving in general.
Yeah.
So that will increase your ability to think about products and think about problem solving in a more advanced way.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So tons of ways to use these AI tools. I'm not an expert, but there's a lot of ways to use these AI tools, and the more you're using them, the better you'll get at, and more creatively you'll think about how to use these tools.
Awesome. Well, I think those were the main things that I wanted to know from you today. So thank you so much for these answers. I think that's going to be very helpful to whoever's watching. So did you have anything else that you wanted to add before we conclude?
Well, one, thanks a lot for inviting me again. I always love helping junior designers get their either level up or get their next job. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I had mentioned that earlier. If you want to just follow everybody I follow, my username is MUKULAGARWALXR at the end, extended reality. Feel free to follow me, and again, I am very grateful to be given this opportunity, and wishing you all the best of luck.
All right. Well, thank you. And yeah, I would highly recommend following Mukul on Twitter.
Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you.
Cool.
We'll see you guys next time.